bearing the weather. I'm Mary Palm with the Knox County Public Library, and we are so thrilled to be partnering with the History Center and Historical Society to present the amazing Sam and Charlie show. I will tell you the power of these guys. I called Sam at like 9:30 this morning. I said, you know, we're not going to have a turnout. There's the rain of the century. Are you sure you still want to come out? And he said, I'll be there if there are 4 people here. That's some celebrity power. So thank you all for bearing the weather. Thank you for coming out to hear these guys. They need no introduction. They are the icons of the Knoxville News Sentinel and journalism everywhere. So we are just thrilled to have them here talking about their book and anything they want to talk about. Frankly, I'll sit back and listen. Before I turn it over to these guys, I want to point out a couple of things. Sorry, I got hair in my face. A couple of things coming up, the History Center. I need my glasses. The Biggs Machine, Old Time Politics in Polk County is coming up on May 15th. That's with Tyler Boyd. That's a do not miss conversation. Tyler's a great presenter. And on May 21st, I know y'all have some heirlooms sitting around your house and you don't know how to care for them. True story, my mother has some stuff from General Longstreet and has mold on it, so she needs this, not anymore because she's, anyway. The conversation is about caring for family heirlooms. It's at 6 o'clock, you do not need to register. So put those on your calendar. Also, if you have grandkids, or kids. The Children's Festival reading is coming up on May 18th, and there's going to be a lot of fun stuff. Frankly, I'm a kid at heart, and it's fun even for me. So without further ado, Sam Venable and Charlie Daniels will take it away.
You may have started, or you going to start it, or what?
You're the main guy. I'm the straight man.
Yeah, he's my straight. First thing I want you to know, I do not have a beer cooler here. Although it has been seen duty that way. Now, I have a nerve issue in my leg. Unless I keep ice on it, I will be down on the floor pounding on the floor. So that's what I will be doing for a while. I want you to know I'm the most surprised person in Knoxville right now. I told Mary Ann when we were coming in and seeing it was just getting worse and worse and worse. I said, you know, if somebody shows up and we're not there, homicide would be allowed, you know. And so I thank you. I want you to know, though, I am a veteran of these weather signings. True story. Back some years ago, does anybody remember where the Fox Theater was down on Kingston Pike down there, right? I guess at Winston Road. It was a theater for some time, and then it shut down. It became a bookstore, and I don't know what the name of it was, but they had a signing scheduled right at Christmas one year for me, Carson Brewer, and Louise Durman. We all had books from the News Sentinel out that year. And they had it, my stars, on the marquee out front, you know, giant type and all that. And I didn't have to drive that far to get up there, but Carson came in from Norris and Louise came in from Jefferson City. And what else came in was a snow. Oh. And it snowed a Carson Brewer snowstorm. And I will tell you who was in that store that day. Sam Venable, Carson Brewer, Louise Durman, and 2 or 3 bookstore employees. We did eat lots of cookies and drink lots of hot chocolate and stuff like that. How these things come about. Let me give you just a touch of background with me and Charlie. You can see it on the back of the book. We worked together at both newspapers, the Knoxville Journal and the News Sentinel. I was at UT and was just dripping behind the ears and got a job at the Journal, and the only available desk was about from here to that window from Charlie's office. So he and I just were bantering around from day one and all that. Then I moved off to a paper in Chattanooga, and then Tom Seiler hired me back to the sports department to be the outdoors editor. So I came back, and then when the Journal ceased publication at the end of 1991, I guess I can tell the trade secret, can't I? Jack, you may know this. See, there was a split up of the joint operating agreement and all that kind of stuff. And Harry Moskos was the editor then, and he could not talk to anybody on the Journal staff about recruiting. Well, I knew Charlie, and we'd see each other downtown, and I became the go-between. Harry did not talk to Charlie Daniel, I guess, till you came to work.
Not till the day I
But he got daily updates, so
yeah.
that's how that all came about. Now, these type of collections, how they occur, I was teasing with Jack McElroy, who's written a real book that you really need to read. I've only written 3 or 4 real books in my life. Most of them are column collections. And the way that you do it, you look through, you haven't done one in some time, and you look through and you find 5 or 6 that you think, dang, those are pretty good most of the time. And I can speak for Cynthia, any other writers in here. Typically, when you read something that you wrote earlier, you're like, oh my God. How in the hell did the New Sentinel even print that? But every now and then you'll see one and you think, yeah, that might work. So you get those 5 or 6, and then you just throw a bunch more in there that take up space. One real quick story, and I'll hush and let Charlie talk a minute. This happened about 2 weeks ago. A woman in my church brought a clipping of mine from 1995, and she said it had meant so much to her and all that. And so I took it home and read it, and I got to the end, and I told Mary Ann, I said, dang, it's a good piece. I said, I should have, if I had known about that. I mean, that was going way back. Most of all of these in this book were written after I retired from the New Sentinel. But I said, I should have put that in that book if I had known it. Well, it kept kicking around in my head and kicking around in my head. And finally I thought, I wonder if it ever, and then I looked at one of my New Sentinel books that they published in 96 or something like that. It's called, what was that? I'd rather be ugly than stupid. And I looked, yeah, there it was. It did get included.
Yeah.
So, you just, those things, you write them, and a lot of times you don't even realize you've written them until you look, oh, yeah, oh, okay, who's this Venable guy here? So that's how this thing came about. And I got a hold of Charlie, and I sent him this letter, an email, and I said that of the different illustrators that have worked on my books, I just can't seem to locate anybody. And, I said, Norman Rockwell's already dead. And I said, somebody keeps suggesting Charlie Daniel. And I said, hell, he's a country music singer and he's dead too. Which is a long-running joke with us. Charlie has no S on the back of his name. And one of our fun things to do, all the years we worked together, was exchange hate mail. And many times we had mutual haters. And we could always tell when 1 or 2 of them were back on their medication or off their medication. But the favorite letter of Charlie's was somebody that just dressed him down up one side and down the other, and then at the end said, P.S. I hate your music too. Yeah. So that's, I got to tell you how fast this guy is. Charlie Daniel can get an idea and have it in a cartoon before I can even come up with a lead to know what to write. I know he would do 2 or 3 a day. You were doing that back at the Journal, I think, because I talked to you about it then. And he said you'd take it up there to the editor, and well, he'd pick one. If he didn't like one, it kind of went back in the pile for a few days later. But he is so quick. I sent him that email like on I don't know, let's just say a Monday. Gave him the brief outline of what I was thinking. We had breakfast later that week. He already had the cover roughed out. And I said, it's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And then a few days later, I guess, I got you 3 or 4 pieces out of each chapter. And we met for lunch the next week, and he had everything right there in an envelope ready to go. He's incredible.
So
take it, Chaz.
when I was a kid, my whole desire in life was to be a cowboy. And I used to really, and that when you stop to think about it, that was really training for being a cartoonist, because trying to be a cowboy, I learned how to draw fast and to shoot straight. And Sam was saying when he first came to the Journal, he was outside of my office. It was a closet.
Yeah, it was.
I was in a closet, and the door opened in, which took up half the space in the closet. So Sam asked me to do the cover for the book, and he told me the title. Naked Dining isn't on the menu.
It's not on my menu.
Yeah, and that it drew itself, you know, and so I immediately thought of Rose's Diner, which came into existence thanks to Jack McElroy. He redesigned the perspective page, and he came to me and said, "Can you do a little something up at the top?" And so the light bulb goes off, which is where ideas come from. You think it's a cliche about the light bulb, but it's true. And so I gave Jack a Rose's Diner, and he said, that's it. So when Sam said naked dining, only thing Rosie requires is a hat. So it drew itself, and so that was a piece of cake. And then my favorite was chapter 6 on I had a young Sam as the duck hunter, and the duck, which by the way is a great day for ducks. Yeah. So the duck's flying over. Those of you with the book can look it up. And the duck is saying, oh great, a duck hunter who's also a straight shooting journalist, which is my definition of Sam Venable, a straight shooting journalist. And I'm a fast drawing cartoonist. So.
We teased each other so often. Charlie had that idea jar on his desk, and then we always teased, though, especially in the new building at the new Sentinel, those giant big windows that face west. We claimed, and again, that's crazy. When I ended up, I mean, when Charlie came and we went to the new building, I ended up right where we'd started. His desk was right there and mine was here. And we'd always say we would race to the window to intercept the muse as it was coming in. And but again, this guy he could do improv, and he does improv on paper. That's what he does. So, and I want to give a quick shout out right over here to this kind lady in the purple who is texting and not listening to a damn thing that's going on.
She's heard it before.
Yeah. This is my wife, Mary Ann, and our daughter, Megan. Mary Ann is the brains behind this and several other books. She is a computer guru. She retired teaching IT over at UT. And so I barely know how to log on a computer. And Charlie is even worse than that. And so she has done a couple of books of mine. She's done 2 books of John Adams. And she's currently working on another Charlie Daniel book that he's had. How long have you had that thing in an envelope? Years?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's I didn't know what to do with it, and so, but she really is a guru. So we're in business. So it
Yeah.
comes out in June or something.
Yeah, it's called Eat Your Greens.
Eat your greens.
Yeah.
And speaking, I'll read. It's a collection of my light verse, and then I started illustrating them. And then Marianne said we got to make it bigger, so we stuck in. In 60 years, I've lampooned a dozen presidents from Eisenhower to Trump, and so I did the caricature. So we have 12 pages of caricatures of presidents to fill up the book. But the poem, here I got a copy of the poem that it's called 3 Little Words. And it's, my mother, Mary Daniel Honey, said to me with affection, authority, humor, sometimes irritation, but never anger. 3 little words. I love you, eat your liver, comb your hair, brush your teeth, take a bath, blow your nose, change your clothes, I love you. Eat your carrots, put that down, pick that up. Don't say ain't, say thank you. Flush the toilet, tie your shoe, I love you. Do your homework, take your medicine, feed the cat, eat your peas, mow the lawn, rake the leaves, get a haircut, I love you. No, you can't. Yes, you can. Wash your hands. Eat your okra, mop the floor, chop the wood, shut the door, I love you. Say you're sorry, I forgive you. Go to church, read your Bible. God is love. Trust in God. Jesus loves you. I love you. Eat your greens, which is where the title of the book came out of, that Eat Your Greens. So.
And I will tell you, the title of that book is the exact headline. That I had a rare privilege there at the News Sentinel that I got to write my own headlines. Writers typically don't do that. But that is the very title I put on the first entry that's in there. I read something where these restaurants, there was, I think, one in New York and one in Paris, which I pointed out was not Tennessee, and London, not in Kentucky, that have these optional dining restaurants. And on certain nights, you can go in there fully clad, and they take you into a little room, and you disrobe. Then you come out and join all these other naked patrons out there. And I said, there's no way. Especially if they serve hot soup. I could just see waiters running around with trays like that. And I think I alluded to something about that, even if I walked into the kitchen nude to eat breakfast, Mary Ann couldn't see me because of the tears of laughter that were coming down. So when you get an idea like that, I mean, how can you not, if you've spent your life, doing parodies and playing, just let the world be your straight man. And just play off of stuff like that. And I've been so fortunate that my entire newspaper career, Post-Journal, now I was a beat reporter and police reporter and all that at the Journal. I went to the Free Press in Chattanooga, was a feature writer down there, but from the time that Tom Seiler hired me back in Knoxville, I think I was 22, and that's about the most supervision I ever had. I had deadlines, daily deadlines, and that's something you just live with. But I had a leash that would stretch from here down to the river. I could just go and do what I wanted to do, and not only that, I'd been on the job about a week or two, and I went with some guys down to North Georgia to fish, and I had to buy an out-of-state license and motel room and meals, and I had kept a copy of the thing. I thought, well, I can file that off my taxes maybe at the end of the year, and I got back into sports, and somebody said, well, now let's get this expense account figured out, and I'm like, what? And so it figured it out, and I'm like, they're actually going to buy that as an expense, aren't they? And I took it over to Red Bales, who was assistant sports editor, to initial it, knowing that he was just going to blow up at me, and he looked at it, signed it, and said, well, just take it back there to the back, and they'll reimburse you. And I said, sweet. Man, that's some of my best creative writing from that point on. But all those years, I could not ask for better editors than Jack and Harry and people like that just let me do what I wanted to do, for better or for worse. And that opportunity just doesn't come around very often, certainly in today's newspaper environment.
Of course, the main reason I started submitting more than one cartoon was I'd been to work for Guy Smith for about a week, and I would come in and draw the cartoon and show it to him and turn it in. And then one day I worked on the cartoon and went back to his office about 4 o'clock and showed it to him. He said, I can't run this. And there we were.
Yeah.
So the next day I did 3 different ideas and took them in at 10 o'clock in the morning to show him. And that's the way that happened. Like I said, I wanted to be a cowboy, but whenever I'd pick up a pencil, I would doodle. And whenever I pick up a newspaper, I would turn to the comic pages, and I loved the comics and would copy them. And so there was a match cover that had this lady's picture, and it said, draw me. And so I drew her and sent it off to Art Illustrated in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And about 3 weeks later, I came home. I was a sophomore in high school then, and I came home, and that was this guy from Art Illustrations in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and my mama, and they had this correspondence course. He said I had great promise, and they wanted to sell us a correspondence course. And my mother said, I'll do this if you promise to do every lesson diligently. And I said, oh yeah, Scout's honor, I'll do everything. And so she signed up for the Art Illustrated course, and I never did the first lesson. No, really.
It's obvious.
The first lesson was drawing cubes and circles, and I said, And so, I like to draw Crazy Cat and stuff like that. And so the ironic thing about all this was about 1949. And at that time, Charles Schulz was working for Art Illustrated, grading papers that came in from correspondence. Had I done the first lesson and mailed it in, no doubt Charles Schulz would have said, wow, this guy's good. But history has a way of passing you by. So it was a God thing. God kept opening up doors for me, and I would walk right by them. And so when I got out of the Marines, I married Patsy, and we went back to Carolina, and I was going to be in the business school because Uncle told me that's how you get ahead in the world, have a business degree. But I was doing all these doodles on my ledger pad and bookkeeping, and my neighbor, who happened to be delivered the Daily Tar Heel, and he saw these things, and he said, "You're a cartoonist." And he took me down to the Daily Tar Heel, and they said, if you draw editorial cartoons, we'll run them and pay you 50 cents a cartoon. And I said, okay. And much to the delight of my accounting teacher, I dropped out of business school and enrolled in the School of Political Science, thinking if I'm going to draw political cartoons, maybe I ought to know something. And for the next 3 years, I studied political science and drew cartoons for the Daily Tar Heel and waited for the big newspaper to come knocking on my door, which never happened. And so I wrote to 40 newspapers, sending them examples of my work. And I got 38 no thank yous, and one, gee, we wish we could, and one maybe from Guy Smith at the Knoxville Journal. I quickly went to the library and found copies of the Knoxville Journal. And Guy Smith was somewhat Republican, and there was a
Old
senator,
school Republican.
there was a senator named Al Gore Sr., who Guy Smith looked on with some disfavor. So I quickly drew some unflattering Albert Gore Sr. cartoons and mailed them to Guy Smith. And I got a phone call from Guy Smith saying, come to Knoxville for an interview. Growing up in eastern North Carolina in the 30s and 40s, the only Republican I ever saw was on a train going from New York to Florida. And my father said, that's a Republican. I was in school with a fellow named Bob Paysor, who was from western North Carolina, where there were Republicans, and he was one. And so I talked him into driving with me 10 hours on Old 70 to Knoxville for the interview, and I quizzed him on what I should say to impress Republican editor. And when I got to Knoxville, I was a Republican, and I convinced Guy Smith that I was a Republican, and he hired me, and the rest is history. Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do,
Yeah.
you know. You want to, I don't know what, y'all want to, anybody ask a question or whatever? Thoughts? We're going, yeah.
Let me tell a real quick story about Charlie. You're talking about Daniel and Daniels.
Mhm.
Charlie called me several years ago to go down to the World's Fair Park with him. He was on the board at Volunteer Ministry, and he was going to sign T-shirts. So we're sitting there.
Well, the people online here.
Okay. So we're sitting there at the table, and this man walks up with a little kid about this tall, and he has a little backpack on his shoulder there. And he walks up to the table, and he empties that backpack on the table of CDs. Now, when Sam tells you this is the truth, you still got to wonder about it. I promise you, this is the truth. Kid lays those things on the table, and Charlie looks at me, and I look at him, and we know what's coming down. And finally, the guy looks at Charlie, and he realized what he's done. He never says a word. He reaches over there and gets those CDs, puts them back in the bag there, and they turn around and walk off. There never was. Who wants this?
Well, I can tell you a similar situation once at a book signing. This was at a bookstore. And this woman walked up and said, "Do I have to buy a book here for you to sign it?" Well, my standard reply was, "No, go in there and steal it." I said, "They've already paid for them. I don't care." She said, "No, I have the books." First book out of the bag, Bridges of Madison County. I said, "Ma'am, you realize I did not write this book." Oh, she said, "I know, but would you sign it?" And I put in there, "I sure wish I'd written this book." The next one, and Jack, this was way before this is way back. As a matter of fact, I'm sure Harry was still editor then. It was a self-help book about finding a new job. And she gave me the name. I recognized the name. It was somebody that worked at the Knoxville News-Sunday. And I put in there, who, Joe Blow or whatever, what do you know that I don't know? And she was happy with that, and out she came with a Danielle Steele novel. I just wrote to whatever. Danielle says hi. She was happy as a clam. One other crazy one like that, again, this was at a bookstore. This guy came in there, asked the same question, and he had on big old bib overalls, and he said, "I got to buy a book in there for you to sign." "Ah, Lord, no. I'll sign your shirt tail. It don't matter to me." He said, "Oh, I got the book." And he came out of those bibs with a first edition of the first book that the News Sentinel printed, A Handful of Thumbs and Two Left Feet. I knew it was first edition because the cover, the emulsion on the cover, it was different from any of the others. And I just cracked it open, and boy, that was a first edition. And that book was in about third edition by then. And I will tell you, the book had not been damaged by overreading. It was just as crisp as it was the day it rolled off the press. And I said, "Where'd you get this book?" He said, "I just give a quarter for it up there at Green Acres Flea Market." And I said, "Well, I would demand a secondary royalty, but that's okay." I signed it to him.
I like to go to McKay's and look in the comic book section, and you'll see one of my books autographed to my dear friend Harvey Smidlap. With much love, Charlie Daniel. And Harvey is giving it to McKay's for 30 cents.
My grandson Max noted that one time. We were in McKay's, and he went over to some of the outdoor books and pulled one down off the shelf. And it was mine, and he opened it up, the very same thing. It was to so and so and so and so. Max looked at it, he says, "Well, Pippi, there's another satisfied customer." Oh, me. Let's go ahead, Jack. Yeah.
I had the pleasure of working with these two guys for about 2 decades, and I just want to clarify a couple of things, okay? Sam mentioned the long leash that he had. Not everybody at the News Sentinel got that kind of a leash, so that was a reflection of the work that he was doing. If there had been problems, his leash would have gotten shorter. And as far as Charlie bringing the multiple drafts of cartoons, well, he'd bring them, but there was never in all of that time that I turned down a single cartoon, except for the ones that Charlie had planned for me to turn down. He brought in something that was clearly just a joke. You should do a book of those, Charlie. That'd really be a good book. All the unpublished works of Charlie Gagnon, probably Sam Venable.
I will tell you, it was no secret around the News Sentinel. I'm hearing voices again. What is that? I took my pills this morning. I was able to write ahead 2 or 3 days at a time, and so therefore did not often, my shadow did always cross the threshold there. Matter of fact, after I retired, I was up at the News Sentinel one time and I ran into Tom Chester, the managing editor, and he said, "Venable, I see a lot more of you now than when you worked here." But Jack knows this story, and I'll tell it, but this is how you have to improvise, like Charlie had to improvise and find out what Republicans, what made them tick and all that. I was several days ahead again, and it was back in about I can't remember exactly, middle of March, and I was in Jefferson County with a buddy of mine, and we were just scouting an area that we were going to turkey hunt. And so I drove back toward his place, and I looked over there, and we saw a friend in his backyard, and I could tell what he was cleaning fish. I said, "Pull in there, let me see what he's doing." We pulled in there, and it was Robert Clausen was his name, and he had caught all these crappies up on Douglas that day. Well, his daughter came out and was getting some of the fillets to go back in and fry them. And, you know, she said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Venable, hi, Mr. Cook," and all that. I knew she was a senior at UT. And I said, "Well, what's happening at UT?" And she said, "Oh, it's just crazy down there today." And I said, "Really, how come?" And she said, "Oh, all that business about Bruce Pearl." And I said, "Yeah," I said, "that's going to go on for a while till the NCAA or somebody does something." And she looked at me. I could have put that bottle in there sideways. She said, "Mr. Venable, they fired him today." I turned to, I said, "Go." We got to his house way back in the sticks. I had my old ancient cell phone. I could not get a signal. I'm on the interstate. Hope there's no state troopers in here. Violating every rule. I'm dodging in and out of traffic. I'm calling friends. Give me some background. I knew the story, but I just need a little background. Okay. Well, I get to the News Sentinel, and it was after hours, so the front door was locked. And wouldn't have mattered because my building pass always stayed home where I wouldn't lose it. And so I'm out there beating on the door, and they finally let me in. And I went up to editorial and beating on the door, and they let me in. And I was walking down the aisle, and I must have been John North or somebody on the city desk I said, "Just kill what I've got for tomorrow. I'm going to." And he said, "Well, I wondered if you were going to write anything about this." I said, "Oh, yeah, a piece of cake. I got it." I sat down, wrote about 3 sentences. Fire alarm went off. It was not a joke. There was a fire in the press room. So here we're going out. Everybody in editorial had to go out behind, stand under that big giant oak. And I'm sitting there trying to remember. I didn't have paper or anything. But I got back in there and wrote. And I think I beat deadline by a good 20 or 30 minutes, you know. Hey, when the presses rolled, old V-Knob he had weighed right in on Bruce Pearl's firing. You know, so sometimes the adrenaline really kicks in.
Sam, I think you had a story about where you were on 9/11.
Oh, there's another one. I've got wonderful timing when it comes to big news events. Same situation, written ahead a few days. Tennessee still has it now, a 5-day wood duck and teal season for those 2 species of ducks. I hunted that morning on Loudon Lake with a buddy of mine. We you know, we killed us a few, came back to the launch ramp. He had to go to the dentist. I said, I got to go home. I need to do a little work, because I did have a couple of column ideas I was kicking around. And I said, we'll meet later on this afternoon. So I drive home, didn't have the radio on, nothing. I get to the house, get coffee. I just go in there and sit down and start working on whatever column idea I was working on. And the phone rang. And it's Megan. She's calling me in tears. And she says, "Is Uncle Ronnie and Aunt Leanne gone back home yet?" That was my brother Ronnie and his wife Leanne Cresson. They were down here directing a play. What was it? Was that Catfish Moon? Or? Oh, okay. For UT, and the thing had finished its run. They were to go home that day. And I said, "Nah, I don't know, honey. What's wrong?" And she's crazy. "What's wrong?" She said, "You don't know?" And I said, "What the hell is happening?" "No, I don't know." She says, "Just go up and turn on the TV." I ran upstairs and I turned on the TV, and I saw, for probably the 400th time, this plane going right into the World Trade Center. And I was like, whoa, boy. And I called Tom Chester and I said, "I'm on my way." So, yeah, I have wonderful timing on big news events.
Yeah, another 9/11 story was the day that Jack McElroy came to introduce himself to the staff. And he walked in and boom, 9/11 happened. And so,
Yeah, and tell them your timing before that, though, Jack. Your news timing when you were in Denver.
What was that?
Columbine. Columbine.
Oh, well, I was at the News Sentinel when the Columbine shoot, or at the Rocky Mountain News
Yeah,
Denver,
yeah.
at the time of the Columbine shooting, and that was, of course, awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just sitting in a news meeting, and somebody rushes in and says, "Just been shots fired at Columbine High School." But yeah, the day I came up here, we came up here on September 10th, 2001, came up here with my wife to, I wanted her to see Knoxville to make sure I was going to accept the job as editor, and she said okay, and so we accepted the job that evening, that afternoon, and so they said, "Okay, we're going to bring you in for a reception and meet the staff tomorrow morning at, I guess, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and we'll go down to the lobby of the hotel," and thought, well, that reception's not going to happen. And as it turned out, Harry Moskis, who was my predecessor, was actually out of town because he was planning on his next move. I mean, he was scoping out where he was going to be relocating to. And so I came in there and we decided that we would do an extra edition. And the News Sentinel hadn't done an extra edition, I don't know if ever, but it hadn't served for
Not
a
since
while.
way back, yeah.
And so people started asking me, "Well, how do you, what should we do? You're going to be the boss. What should we do?" And I literally did not know where the restroom was. So I said, "Just do what you normally do." And we had an edition out on the street by noon.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Newspaper-
first day.
Newspaper offices can really be, I mean, I've always said, I don't know if newspapers just naturally attract type A, crazy, wacko people, or do newspapers attract normal people and turn them into type A? But, I mean, anybody, and Cynthia, you've been on deadlines, Alan's been on deadlines. I mean, when that adrenaline is going on deadlines, it is really a rush. And I've said, when you're right there and the heat's on and everything, I swear they could cut off a hand and you wouldn't even notice it till all of a sudden there's blood on your keyboard there. But it's really a fun environment to work in. I swear, crazy as it is, it's a fun. Randy was around it 1,000 years. So, and his dad, how long was your dad up there, Randy? 30, 40 years?
26.
Yeah,
26.
yeah. So, it's a different It's a different existence. Somebody please, yes.
Are papers printed in Knoxville today?
A bunch, including the Knoxville News Sentinel, the Nashville Tennessean, Lexington? I think Lexington is printed there, Oak Ridge, yeah, Maryville. Things have changed. The News Sentinel has a state-of-the-art press, and it's, 23 or 4 years old now, I guess, but it's still top of the line, and we do a lot of publications. Yeah, the Tennessean is trucked across the plateau every night. There's another old newspaper guy.
Going back to, you're talking about the crazy people in the newsroom. I don't want to imply that you were in any way responsible.
This is Chris Wolwin, who was,
You were present the night they set the newsroom on fire.
actually, I was not. I would love to claim it, but I've heard it enough, yeah.
Well, the story is one night, Knoxville Journal, it's in the morning paper, Charlie was already gone.
I always left at 3:30. Yeah.
Not before the really craziness happened, but one night, an ongoing argument between two news people resulted in them setting the copy desk on fire, the fire department coming in with their axes, fire chemical being splattered all over some of the reporters who were making too much fun of the people that started the fire. Anyway, then the person in charge, Byron Drennan, had to call the editor at home and explain to him why his newspaper was going to be late.
I know the two combatants in there, your former colleague, Ron McMahon and Bill Vaughn. And the story that I heard was that newspaper desks, offices, if you're a clean freak, you would break out in hives being around a newspaper. And they got so bad, apparently somebody, Steve Humphrey, the managing editor, Dick Evans, I don't know, somebody put down an edict that Ron McMahon really need to clean, it was either Ron or Bill, I can't remember, clean out your desk. So he cleaned out his desk, went on his beat. When he got back, whether Ron or Bill, whoever had done it to the other, had just dumped trash cans in the drawers and all that. And they apparently did get into quite a fight. And somebody says that Ron pushed Bill in newspaper. Well, OSHA hates newspapers, but they have these big long spikes about that long with a lead base where you would spike stories. And you're talking a lethal weapon. And apparently pushed Bill, and somebody grabbed that out of the way or he would have been impaled. And it got worse and worse and worse. And then one of them got up on the copy desk with rubber cement. That's how you cut and paste that you have on a computer. This was cut and paste. That's how you did it. And just walked around the copy desk pouring all that on those stories. And Bob Adams, the old copy editor, he said, let's just make it official. Poof! Up it went. Yeah. Like I said, there can be crazy places to work.
Yeah, Harry Hirschfeld, who was a famous cartoonist and humorist, which I hope is redundant, was asked his editor if a cartoonist, in fact, was a newspaper man. And his editor replied, "It's a barnacle a ship." So
Carol McMahon over there.
Question over here.
Yeah.
Would you mind just talking a little bit about the story you did on Charlie Bolden?
Oh, well, I'll be happy to. I have said everybody gets one of those a career. And I was lucky right at the end of my career to have that. I'd worked on 3 papers, the Knoxville Journal, Chattanooga News Free Press, and the News Sentinel. All that time, I kept hearing stories about a black guy who got shot in Tellico, up in the Cherokee National Forest, for the crime of fishing while black. And I kept trying to run it down, and I'll be honest, I faulted myself that I really never, it was history by the time that I got a hold of it. I never really kept pushing it and kept pushing it and kept pushing it. And finally, for Black History Month in 2014, I thought, I am going to find out something. I figured it's long since gone. Happened in 1968. And so I called the court clerk down in Monroe County. Everybody in Monroe County knew the story. I mean, I had people tell me time and time again who the shooter was. It was just common knowledge down there. Took the jury 20 minutes to find him not guilty, oddly, and this is all getting into the story. Anyhow, I went down there. She had the file, the transcript and everything. It had been stored way down in the bowels of that courthouse. It leaked on it. I mean, water damage, insect damage. But I was able to start peeling. It's like onion skin paper, peeling this thing apart. And I finally found the victim, Charles O. Molden, Route 4 Sevierville or something like that. And so I started talking to some of the older people in the courtroom. Well, now, who the sheriff? Oh, the sheriff's long dead. The judge is long dead. Going down through the jurors, they're all dead, all dead, all. And the court reporter told me, he said, I think that Molden guy's still alive. I've heard that he is. I said, where does he live? No idea. So I came back to the News Sentinel, and the internet can be your friend. It can be your foe, but if you treat it right. So I'm starting cross-referencing back and forth the best I can, putting out feelers here and there. And I finally started getting some Molden stuff, and I would leave messages on the thing. I finally found a lead that Charlie Molden may live in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I drove out there where they thought it was, and I kind of got turned around, and these are how things happen. I saw a mail truck go by, and I thought, he pulled into a church down there, and I thought, I'm in the general vicinity, maybe he knows, so I went down there and just talked to the guy. And started talking to him, and when I introduced myself, he said, hey, you used to do that outdoors, didn't you? I said, oh, yeah. Hey, let me show you a picture of this. He had a picture of a big fish he had caught or something. I said, do you know a guy named Charlie Molden? Is he on your route? Oh, yeah, he just lives. He says, did you know he went to school with Dolly Parton? I said, whoa, I got him. Still had never talked to the guy. He was out of town. And I finally, I get cold chills coming into the office that day. My phone one day was blinking red. And I picked it up, and it's just this very calm voice. This is Charles Molden, and I understand you're looking for me. Oh, it tears me up right now. Here he was. Still got the bullet in his leg. And so I came back and showed Jack what I had from that, and he said, stop everything. Just work on that. And I worked a couple of 3 weeks, I guess, on it. And it was absolutely amazing story that he was taken up there. He was a concrete finisher, a bricklayer, and he worked with a bunch of white guys. He'd gone to school there. But when he got into high school, they had to, he went to Austin East. He got bused to Austin East. He was a great football player. But he never could play at Austin East because by the time practice was over, he didn't have a ride back to Sevierville. And so I meet with him, and he brings me his yearbook, and I'm telling you, the cold chills work. He brings me, he's a year ahead of me. I was at Young High School. He brings me his yearbook, and he was telling me that he was in the same class as Dolly Parton. And I'm thinking, I don't know about this one. Yeah, there's Dolly Parton's picture. There's Charlie Molden's picture. And so we flip it over, and there is this big double truck picture of, in a high school yearbook, athletics, Latin club, all athletics. There's this big picture of them carrying their coach off the field. And he said, I think that's the night we beat Young High School. He said, I'm pretty sure of it. And boy, I'm telling you now, I got 6 acres of cold chills. I said, hold on. I went upstairs, get my junior annual, opened it up to the football team. Oh, what happened? I said, yeah, I'm sorry, I got ahead of the story. The reason he said, I think it's Young High, there was this old dejected player over there like that. And I said, yeah, that's Young High. I said, that's Dickie Black. He was a guard on our team. And that's when I went up there, and I got the football picture, the team picture, and I said, yeah, see, that's 66 right there. It's Dickie Black. And I said, you see that little runt up there? He said, yeah, that's me. Same damn game. And that's when he desegregated. The Knoxville Interscholastic League was desegregated that night. And the paper ran a little story on it. I'm going through microfilm and everything. The story of the trial, though, was completely ignored. The News Sentinel did run a story when the shooting occurred, and that was it. And the Monroe County paper ran a story when the lead shooter was acquitted, and Charlie wasn't even mentioned. He said he was accused of shooting a Negro on Tellico River, and that's how it got buried, And it was a fascinating story. As I said, man, you get one of those a career, and I was real lucky to have that, and lucky that Charlie would talk about it. But there were so many side players in that. This is Carol McMahon from the Sevier County Chamber. You were in school then, weren't you, Carol? And Gary Wade. There were so many heroic stories that occurred with that. Charlie was a senior before he could get any light his way. He had quit school. And what happened, he had told me why he quit. And he said, I don't want to talk about it. I said, Charlie, we're going to have everything, warts and all. He had gotten arrested for shoplifting up here on the Market Square. Stole a $2 shirt, and he got like 6 weeks in the workhouse for it. And so when he came out, he's bricklaying, and a cousin or something of his came over there and said, they're having football practice over at the high school, you can go. And he's like, no, I can't. And he said, yeah, you can too. And he went home and showered, and he went in, and he said when he opened the door of that clubhouse, everybody turned. He said it got real quiet. And they accepted him. And he was a pretty good running back. And they accepted him. And that summer, the Sevier County team went to Kingston to scrimmage. And they got down there, and when the team down there realized they got a black player, they're not going to scrimmage. And so the coach, he said, guys, what do you want to do? Charlie said, well, I'll just stay here in the clubhouse, and y'all go out there and scrimmage. And it was Gary Wade, who was the retired state Supreme Court judge, and Alan Stansel. 2 or 3 of them stood up, and they said, we're going to play as a team, or we ain't going to play. They got on the bus, came back to Sevier County. Now, when you figure that's in the mid-60s in the South, that's pretty heady stuff right there. Don't get me started on this. Lord, I can talk for 20 hours about Charlie Holden. Yes, sir.
It's 1 o'clock. You want to take one more question? Then I don't know if there are any more books to sign, but I'm sure you'll be available. to
Are
sign.
there any more over there? Well, just so happened that John Rice Irwin told me one time, Sam, always tell your audience the book is in limited edition. He said, don't tell them it's limited to what you can carry in at any one time. But we do have some order forms over there. We did not know what to prepare for. And matter of fact, when I saw that storm today, I thought we'd bring about 5 books up here.
Well,
So we obviously did not bring enough. But if anybody wants to fill out the form there, that's fine. And I know where they are.
All right. One more question, and then we'll thank you.
I used to steal Charlie Daniels' illustrations that he would put in front of the newspaper machines every Saturday morning before UT's football game. And in fact, I had several of them while I was in school. I was just wondering, did anybody ever steal any of your books, Sam?
Only if they had tables that needed leveling or something like that. Because some of my books are real thick and some are thin. You could get different ones and get the right level. No, I don't ever recall that the circulation people came in and said, we've had a theft of your column.
they actually, they wanted people to take those, they called them rack cards. And they would, that was the whole idea was you're supposed to go take it and they would come put another one in there. So you're not the only one, but but I forgive you like I wrote.
All right, y'all, give a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.